Good morning, welcome to Nigeria Now, showing on your digital first Pan-African news network. A show where we talk about the headlines of the newspapers each day. And of course, we have a couple of newspapers this morning, of course, the Nigerian dailies. And we begin with the Daily Trust newspaper. World Press Freedom Day, Nigerian journalists decry worsening conditions. We have three riders there. The first, 71 pressmen killed, 293 incarcerated in 1 year worldwide. The second rider says practitioners under surveillance in Nigeria, says IPI. And the third rider, stick to ethics, governors tell media. That's on page 5 of the Daily Trust newspaper. From the very top, 2023 Presidency, Tinubu, Osinbajo, other Southwest leaders to meet Friday. And besides that, 7 years after federal government yet to implement aviation development roadmap. That's on page 21 of the Daily Trust newspaper. The lower banner says we'll never allow terrorists to have their way, says Sultan. That story is on page 4. Underneath that, Army declares war on IPOB for killing couple personnel. That's on page 30. And Olawekbo Hashim picks APC presidential forms tomorrow. Besides that, 50 passengers escape as fire guts plane stars in Port Harcourt. That story is in the Daily Trust newspaper. We move over to the Blueprint newspaper. The big stories: Akeredolu or Payami to APC leadership on 2023, return presidency to South, Dow's raging restiveness. A couple of riders there. And the governor says we must avoid self-inflicted crisis before general elections. And then we see no section of Nigeria should be allowed to dominate the order, says Okpeyemi. Fayemi declares today, unveils agenda. Buhari's visit to Ebonyi raises fresh hope on Igbo presidency, says Ohaneze. Besides that, we see a UK firm injects $500 million to rescue Nigeria from youth unemployment, moves to transform Abuja to Dubai. That story is on page 13 of the Blueprint newspaper. From the very top, informants assist terrorists attacking Kaduna communities, says Erufai. Urges monarchs to mobilize, expose, cooperate, support security operatives. And the second rather, 14 kidnapped victims rescued in Niger communities, COAS hails troops. 14 kidnapped victims rescued in Niger communities, Chief of Army Staff hails troops. That's on page 6 of the Blueprint newspaper. The lower banner says Nigeria's pension fund hits 13.88 trillion naira in first quarter 2022. That's on page 23. And then on page 16, fire guts INEC office in Zamfara. The next one, Access Bank promotes 800 employees, transits to holdco structure. Anti-piracy war, security experts storm Abuja for Gulf of Guinea conference. And OBJ says prayers will smoothen ongoing rough edges in Nigeria. NDLEA is saying how drug baron linked to Kiari imported 22 billion naira tramadol in 1 month. And the last one on this newspaper is why our aircraft had challenge taking off, says Dana Air, on page 22 of the Blueprint newspaper. And talking business, Business Day newspaper, Nigeria earns twice more from gas than oil in first quarter of 2022. That story continues on page 31 of the newspaper. Besides that, no alternatives to restructuring. Private sector operatives insist. Akeredolu says South must produce next president. Underneath that story, African startups raise $2.25 billion in 4 months, up 250%. That's on page 31 of the Business Day newspaper. And shopping sales hit 9.76 trillion naira as COVID-19 curbs ease, Euromonitor is saying. Shopping sales hit 9.76 trillion naira as COVID-19 curbs case. That's coming from Euromonitor on page 30. An explainer says how organizations can block ransomware cyber attacks on page 30 of the Business Day newspaper. On Nigerian News Direct, the big story there is Southwest agenda. Akande Ashoba to meet Tinubu, Osinbajo, other presidential aspirant, as Akeredolu insists power must shift to South. That's on page 4. And then Abiodun says my government won't condone acts that can truncate peace, harmony in Ogun State. Peter Obi says insecurity linked to Nigeria's failure to invest in human capacity building. OPEC is saying Nigeria's crude production crashed by 1.2 million barrels in April. Nigeria's crude production crashed by 1.2 million barrels in April. From the very top, free train service vehicle for making Osun economic hub of Southwest, free train service, vehicle for making Osun economic hub of Southwest. And report says 71% of Nigerian businesses were hit by cyber attacks in 2021. That story is on page 14 of the Nigerian News Direct. And still on that paper, Fayemi joins APC presidential race, unfolds agenda. That's on page 2 of the Nigerian News Direct newspaper. On this day, Akeredolu to Buhari, it's Southerners' turn to produce next president. That's on this day newspaper. From the very top, UN scribe Guterres, the Borno I found today is one of hope. Telcos seek upward review of voice call SMS data services cost. That's on page 10 and page 42 of this day newspaper. And the lower news right there says US Supreme Court orders probe after rare leak of draft abortion ruling. That is on page 10 of this day newspaper. PDP governors kick as Atiku plans to retain Peter Obi as running mate. This story is on Daily Independent newspaper. The banner headline there says 2023 presidency, PDP governors kick as Atiku plans to retain Peter Obi as running mate. That story is continued on the Daily Independent newspaper. Then from the very top, we say it's time for South to produce president. Akeredolu wants APC chair. Others, 2023, God will handle any Southern governor or ex-governor who accepts VP, says Clark. The lower banner on that newspaper, Daily Independent, says 1.12 trillion naira food import bill. Stakeholders urge federal government to tackle insecurity, low purchasing power. That story is on page 23 of the Daily Independent newspaper. We move over to the Punch newspaper. Dumping rotational presidency will cause crisis. Akeredolu says senators. That's on page 2 and 7. Dumping rotational presidency will cause crisis, coming from Akeredolu, senators. The writer says it's South's turn to produce president under Governor One's APC. Akande, Oshoba, Tinubu, Osinbajo, and Moshun others meet Friday over Southwest candidacy. Under Governor threatens democracy, coming from CNG. Fayemi, Olawekpo, Hashim join race. The lower banner says UN Secretary General Guterres in Nigeria to meet Buhari. That is on page 16 of the Punch newspaper. On The Guardian, intense jostle for market share as telcos delve into retail banking. A couple of riders there. From the very top, we see Discourse deny rejecting 2,495.3 megawatts electricity load as supply remains dismal. That is on page 3. Besides that 2023 presidency, Gowon should have allowed Igbo leave, says Clark. Besides that zoning, Ohaneze youth fought Uwazurike for endorsing Bello. That is on news page 6. Our Nigerian army condemns killing of 2 officers in Owerri. That is on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper. The lower banner there says next president must come from southern Nigeria. Akeredolu tells APC. That is on page 2 of the Guardian newspaper. And Peter Obi stresses need to replace sharing with production formula. That is on page 7 of the Guardian newspaper. You can also stay updated on our website www.tostvnetwork.com, and of course our social media handle is at TOSTV Network on Instagram, Facebook and Twitter. Thank you for joining us today again on Nigeria Now. My name is Merciful Ajinomo. See you tomorrow. Bye for now.